I'm Buddy Hartzell. I'm served in Vietnam in 1969, 1970. I'm currently the first vice commander in Front Royal Post 53, and enjoy the work I'm doing with the veterans. And it gets a little hectic sometimes, but we manage to do it. And we'd like to have all the veterans that are eligible to come down and join us. And I'm sure they would enjoy it, because there's a lot of activities, a lot of work if they want to do the work.
All right, I'm Dan Murray. Went in '66 and severed in '92. I left as an E7. I was the longest standing E7 in my unit. And my grandson Christopher's been a member here for 4 years. He's had 9 deployments in 10 years. And I bless him all the time and think of him all the time.
He's a member of the American Legion.
He's a member of this post. I signed him up when he enlisted 10 years ago, and we've been keeping his membership going ever since. So it's important to keep the tradition alive. It's a very important part of my life.
Good afternoon, my name is Ralph Smith. I serve in the United States Navy, Air Corps, and I went into service in January of 1962, and I was discharged in September of 1969. I spent 2 tours in Vietnam, one aboard the Ticonderoga, which was back in 1964, which the first fired upon the destroyer Turner Joy, and then I went back in 1967 with a patrol squadron of VP-9 anti-submarine warfare. I served in Vietnam in Air Corps, which I was awarded the combat flight for 250 combat flight hours. It was my highest medal, it's the Air Medal. I was discharged in 1969. However, in the Veterans Organization here, I also dedicated the Korea-Vietnam Memorial here in downtown Front Royal in 1985. I was also responsible for having, or part of the responsibility for having Veterans Day proclaimed as a holiday here in Front Royal, along with the now deceased Mayor Lillard and deceased Veterans Affairs Officer Edwin Pomeroy. I addressed the town council, and we got the town of Front Royal recognized as a holiday for Veterans Day.
Well, 1983 to 1987, and USS Niagara Falls, and then CNSWG-1 in Coronado, California. I'm Rodney Jones.
What ultimately made you want to serve? Or were you drafted, or how did that happen?
Draft was out. Everybody in my neighborhood was getting drafted, so I enlisted. My father was in the Army. He wanted me to follow suit and go in the Army. I went in the Army. And I wouldn't change it. But when my grandson was enlisting, I told him, with his brains, go Air Force. He's a crew chief on F-15s and A-10s. Testing for officer sometime in December. So after 9 deployments, a cat only has 9 lives. It's time to become an officer. He has the education. I keep bringing Chris up because he's one of the major parts of my life, and he's an element of pride that'll never go away.
What would you say are some of the best parts about serving the country?
Well, I grew up, I had 1, 2, 3, 4 uncles. My father were in the service, and I knew when I came out of high school and Vietnam was going on that eventually I was going to end up there. I waited for about 1.5 years, never got called, got married. 6 months later, I was called up, so that wasn't too thrilled about that, but I always wanted to serve. I felt it was my duty, my obligation from the family standpoint, and I always thought it would be a great experience, and turned out it was an experience.
Like kind of leads me to my next question, which is what would you say were some of the hardest parts of serving for our nation?
Being away from home, and during the time I was in, it was a lot of conflict back home. Is I would say probably as much as what was going on where I was at. And even when I came back, before I came back into civilian life, it was pretty erratic. There were a lot of discrepancies between the way people felt, the way they did things they did. I wouldn't say that it was particularly racial oriented or anything like that, but it was just the fact that the people that I was with when I came back from Vietnam, it was really a diverse bunch of people and feelings, and they were hard to deal with. I mean, it was hard to deal with for me.
My best parts of serving the country, I really enjoyed my tour. I really thoroughly enjoyed. I had a great time, and I had a great squadron commanders. I can't say that I really had a bad time. My military experience was to me, was really enjoyable. However, I would have stayed longer because when I was in Vietnam, I was recognized as one of the outstanding individuals in my squadron. I was giving a Ho Chi Minh field promotion, which means that I didn't have to take a test. I had to be in country the day of the examination. And this is kind of funny because the day that I went there, they flew me from Manila, Philippines, up to Vietnam because my squadron at the time was in Manila for doing preventative maintenance on the aircraft, and I had to be in country that particular day of the examination. And that particular night, the Cam Ranh Bay come under attack, and I was in our crew, and I had no aircraft there for me. And so I had to go jump into these bunkers, and I wasn't too happy with that. So all of a sudden there was the base commander come around on the jeep, so the whole flight personnel manned an aircraft. So I was jumped down and got on an aircraft. It had no ordnance on it, and we flew around the base for like an hour and a half because we had too much fuel on the aircraft to land back. But we just flying around, if you would, is almost like a 4th of July, looking down at the ordnance exploding, and you could do nothing about it because you had nothing on your aircraft. Because these aircraft were ready for a flight for the next day and no ordnance on them. So I guess, like I said, I never had, would you say, a bad day in the military. I really thoroughly enjoyed my time, and I was, like I said, recommended for this field promotion. And at the time, they offered me $20,000 to stay for another 6 years. And my wife said, well, you can stay, but if you come back home, I won't be here. I probably shouldn't put that in there, but that's the way it was. So I decided to come back home. So that was my tour with the military.
What's the hardest part about serving the nation?
I guess the hardest part was missing your family. Things that I had 2 small children, and you miss these things that, that when they're growing up, that you need to be a part of, which I was not a part of. Like special things that they do in school, you weren't there for. And that was the hard part.
What would you say are some of the best parts about serving our nation?
Well, serving the nation, you get to see the world and you get to help people, and there's a lot of good that gets done. I mean, I've been all over the place, places I've never seen from being front row, and I've been pretty much all over the world. So.
What was one or some of the biggest challenges that you faced when you came out of the service?
Adjusting.
In what way?
I would say it was realizing the things that I'd missed And what I thought I would be coming back to, it wasn't there. I had to completely rethink the things that I did, and I'm constantly doing that now. But I think the rethinking and readjusting was the big problem, and I didn't feel like I was wanted. I really didn't. I came back and it was completely different than what our veterans are getting now. And I think what the veterans are receiving now is great. Compared to what I had, it is day and night.
I want to speak a little more of you. Like, how do you feel about from when you were in the service and where, you know, just the whole political climate and how things were then versus like what we have going on now in our country?
Back then when I was young. I was 18 years old when I came out of school and went into the military. But back then I thought it was the right thing. But the more I got to see the political side of it, it was a political war. And the more that I learned after I came out, it was even more political. And I didn't see it as being a war as what we had seen before, like in World War I, Korea, World War II. This was completely different. And right now, what we're seeing now as far as the terrorism side of it is, I would compare it with Vietnam, because you didn't know who you were dealing with, you didn't know what to expect, and you felt uneasy. You didn't know. Today, I don't feel comfortable with some of the surroundings, and I think they're trying to deal with it in a little different way than when I came out. I'm apprehensive. I really am. I don't know if I really feel secure with what our government's doing. I do kind of like the thing now that a lot of people might not like Trump and don't not supposed to bring politics into it, being a veterans organization, but you got to have a little pair between your legs to stand up and say, you know, what you feel.
My number one challenge was facing the public, I guess you would say, because the Vietnam War was not a popular war. It was a lot of demonstrations against the war. So I was not, I would say as a veteran, not well received as being a veteran. I didn't receive this recognition until probably maybe last year when I was at the Festival of Leaves and I had my hat on as a Vietnam War veteran. And I had so many people come up to me and thank me for my service and hug me, and not male, female, police officers. I was really astonished by the recognition that I got this last year with the hat that I had on, a Vietnam veteran. So that was a hard challenge. What I'm trying to say is accepting back into public life.
Acceptance from people. People look down on you for your service. But if you're an employer, the person you want is the person who wore a uniform. They understand discipline. They understand following directions. And they understand the importance of filling out a piece of paper. Mechanics think paperwork's a pain, but it's part of the backbone of a preventive maintenance system. You learn that in the service. And it's a very simple thing to transition into. Dedication is there all the time. And pride in what you do. Whether I was taking a privy, a field latrine, or I was setting up a tank trap, I took the same pride in the work I did. And if you find somebody in uniform, for 99 out of 100, they all carry the same pride. It's a pride of doing right and doing the job right.
Hardest part of service, being away from your family and your loved ones, and then, you know, just being away in foreign countries. So,
What's the number one challenge that you faced when you got out of the service and came home?
Wasn't really no challenge. I mean, it just, I come here, I grew up in this place, American Legion, but wasn't really no challenge. I went to work. When I got out, I don't think I graduated, and wasn't really no challenge. To me, anyway. I mean, but there's different things, different
Right.
people go through
Other
different
people
things.
have said that they had trouble adjusting, that they felt like they weren't welcome.
Well, I didn't have that problem. I was a different era. I was, like I say, in '83, '87. It wasn't like the Vietnam era, what they talk about, but I don't know. Just me, I didn't really have no problem. I just had my friends and my family.
What do you know that I don't know, or that others might not know about serving?
I think everybody that comes out of high school ought to serve a year. That was my feeling back then. It's my feeling now. It always has been. Well, I think it builds character. I think it builds responsibility. There's a lot a lot of the youngsters now don't have. It's not saying that we don't have a good group of kids coming up. We do. We've got a great bunch of kids coming up. We do a lot for them here at the American Legion. We tried to go through our programs and get that done. But I think it would build character, would build more understanding of what the world is really like, and give them a total different perspective of what life is. And I found out when I went in, boy, it was it was different. And I truly enjoyed it when I first went in. I did. I thought it was as a different experience. And the longer I was in and the more I realized what it was all about, it got tougher. It got a lot tougher.
So what would you say to future generations as they move forward? Younger folks that are considering joining?
Gosh, to speak to the young people, I would say, if you feel that you can do it, you feel insecure, give it a try. Look at, you have nothing to lose and everything to gain, and I don't think they would regret, any part of the military. I've got a granddaughter. I shouldn't say it, but I would like to see her go in. She wants to pursue a career, and I think it would do it. Not only monetarily help her, but I think it'd be a great experience for her. My son, he was going to go in. At the time, he couldn't get in. I mean, there was some conflicting things going on in his life, and well, he's 35 years old now, so. But I think it'd be a great experience for anyone. It would give you a total different outlook on what the world is all about. It's not fun and games. Life's not fun and games, but it can be enjoyable. When I came back from Vietnam for a few months, I had great duty. I enjoyed it, and but now I'm sitting back and thinking and going through it, and it's nerve-wracking.
Okay, well
I've talked to all my grandkids about how important it is to wear a uniform. When I hear the national anthem, I don't care where I'm at, I snap to attention. It is as sacred almost as a church service. Actually, it is as sacred as a church service. We need to have the kids today understand the importance of saluting the flag, understanding what those who have gone before them have experienced and done, so they can have the liberty and the freedom to do what they do today. To serve is a calling. I'll probably serve for the rest of my life. Right now I'm in politics. I don't consider it politics. I consider it supporting the people where I live. I represent about 40,000 people. I represent North River, but I represent my whole county. I do it not to just do, I do it to serve. It's an element of pride to be able to say, I helped someone. And I hope to do it again one more time. When you hit your middle 70s, it's time to retire. But I don't feel that I'm over 50 yet. So, thank you.
Is there any advice you would give to the next generation who are considering to serve?
My only consideration or thoughts would be proud to serve in your military. The freedom that we have today walking down these streets is only because of you, the people who serve in our military to protect our country. That's all I can say with that.